Welcome to the Voices of the Goddess podcast. We believe that there is a goddess inside each and every one of us. When we use our voice to share that goddess, we support and uplift each other. Join us each week as we interview women to receive the message of their goddess within. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Voices of the Goddess podcast, where we empower, inspire, and uplift women to become the goddesses they are meant to be. And I am Julietta, your co-host. I am called the Magical PT. I help mostly women, but I'll help men too. You know, why not? But get their body, mind. I can't even speak right now. Their body, mind, and spirit in balance so that they're all tuned up and ready to perform their best and be their best. And I'm down here and we're making jokes today because I'm in the Sunshine State, living down here in Fort Lauderdale, but I didn't see any sun yesterday. I didn't see any sun today. I don't know what this is about, but it's fine because you know me, my pale Germanic skin does not appreciate that sunshine anyway. So this is perfect for me. And I'm originally from the Midwest, from Wisconsin. I just got back from there a few days ago, and where all the really nice, friendly people live. And oh, there's some down here. Don't take that the wrong way. There's nice, friendly people everywhere. They just seem to be exceptionally nice up there in the Midwest. So, what else am I going to say? I've been down in Fort Lauderdale practically forever, but I will never say I'm from here. I'm always a Midwesterner from Wisconsin, and I love what I do, healing people. I heal people with my PT practice. I heal people with my art, which consists of crystal jewelry and art and painting and all that good stuff. And in the past year, I've become a podcaster too, with my amazing partner over there who, I guess together we made ourselves courageous to take this on, and we're having a blast doing it and appreciating all of our audience out there. So, hey, Allyson.
All right. So my name is Allyson Mancini, and I am, here with my lovely co-host, Julietta. And I, too, am from the Midwest, but a Michigander, not a Wisconsinite. But it is truly home. When people ask me, I always say I'm from Michigan, even though I've been in South Florida for 28 years now. And we were talking with our guest, who will be on in a minute, about where she's at. And she's actually experiencing slightly cooler weather than we are right now, which I'm super jealous of because we just don't get those season changes anymore in South Florida, ever. Feels like we have really hot and kind of hot, right? So
hot and hotter.
Yeah, that's it. So, but I am a mom to two amazing young adults, 24 and 22. I've been married for almost 28 years. Actually, in about 48 hours, will be 28 years. And
happy anniversary.
I know. And I am a holistic nutritionist. And really, most of my journey has been my own personal experience. I have my youngest, she's had health issues most of her life. And my son went through some struggles, and I personally went through some major health struggles, and just really learned very quickly how important our nutrition is to our overall well-being. So that is my passion now, is to help women, particularly. I too also will work with men, but I do like to work with moms, and I help moms just make good decisions about their health and their nutrition so that they can kind of trickle down effect to their family and affect those that come after them, leave a legacy of good nutrition. So we're excited to be here today. We have a very special guest today. You want to introduce kind of her? We'll let her introduce herself.
Well, let's bring Lena on and
yay!
Welcome to the show, Lena.
Hi, ladies. I didn't know you guys were from the Midwest. We're talking about Florida and non-Florida, and I'm from Iowa.
What?
Yeah, I lived in Michigan. And I can get over to Wisconsin super easy. So I'm from Dubuque, Iowa originally. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's a little reunion.
I did one of my PT internships there.
Did you really? Yeah. It's a good little town. So anyway, and now I'm in St. Louis where, as they were saying, the weather's spectacular today.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me.
So introduce yourself to our audience. Tell everybody about you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, my name's Lena Dolter, and I work with busy professional women and also open to working with men I help them break free from overwhelm, overdoing, overthinking, stress, the cycle that keeps us in our heads and disconnected from our bodies, our hearts, and our soul. And, my work really helps women and men truly know themselves. I find with myself how, like, what led me to this work and the clients that I help is that, we're overthinking so much and we're discounting our feelings and either pushing them down or shoving them away or, eating them or working them out. And we're not really feeling them and expressing them. And what I've learned is that really inhibits our relationships. Any relationship, the ones with ourselves, the ones with our loved ones, family, partners, work relations. And so my mission is really to support women and men to harness themselves, their energy, their feelings, and really get back into touch with who they are so that they can communicate clearly and confidently how they're feeling, what they need, and be able to get that from their partner as needed, but really be able to know what they're in ownership for and responsibility for so that they can be in true partnership and intimacy with each other.
I love that. And I don't know if you've noticed this also, Julietta. So Lena, so that you know, we've talked about this before, so our audience has probably heard us say this, but we do numerous interviews back to back, and it always amazes me, and it needs to stop amazing me because it happens all the time, how we do 4 interviews back to back, and those people are completely unrelated. Most times they don't even know each other. And the reoccurring themes that come up each interview that are back to back is uncanny, honestly. And I really know it's not. I mean, like, I get how that all works, but just you talking about, feeling your feelings.
She just regurgitated our whole last podcast.
I know. I was like, but from a different perspective, right?
Absolutely.
Which is so, what we were also talking about is so key, like hearing it from different people. So yeah.
That's what I was just going to say is, like, other people will listen to both podcasts and go like, oh, they were completely different. They had nothing to do with each other. Even though, like, we're sitting here going, it's the exact same message, just from a different perspective and, coming out of a different mouth, using different words, but it's the same message. So it's so cool. I love that. Absolutely.
I do too. Because that's one of our big things is we really are big on diversity, even and from age and stage of life and everything. And so seeing how it all can tie together to me is such a cool thing. And seeing how, we were just kind of laughing about this, the book that came up in our previous interview. Julietta's been, don't hate me for this, but Julietta's been talking to me about that book. And I was like, her last guest, she like went on about this book, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to read this book now.
That's amazing. Now I need to know what the book is. Yeah.
We'll get there. Oh, anyways. All right. So thank you so much for being here. And I love that you found us and we got connected through another guest of ours. And this is so exciting. So we're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it'll be fun. All right. Are you going with the questions, Julietta, or am I?
I'm not the owner of the question. You can ask a question if you want.
You're doing so well. All right. So our first question is, and I know you've seen the questions ahead of time, which is always good. Our first question is, what is your superpower, or what would it be if you had one?
Okay, so my superpower is knowing. So I'm highly intuitive. I'm a knower, and I love that superpower. And I believe everybody has the capacity to be a knower because we all have intuition. So this is all connected to my work as well, right? It's like when we drop in and really know how to hear our highest self, or, whatever you call that intuitive voice, you also have the ability to be a knower. And I love that. If I could have an additional superpower, and I believe that in some way, in some place I would be a bird. I would be a fly. I would fly because I am obsessed with birds. I just they are all around. Like some have come into the house. So I have a very like a feathery existence in some ways. So yeah, that'd be it.
Nelly Furtado is in my head now. I'm like a bird.
Oh my gosh, that's true. That's true. Oh my gosh, from like the 90s or something. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes way back when. But what I do want to speak to is, you're saying that you're a knower and you're knowing, and way back in my early 20s when I started, connecting with things, and I would say stuff to people and they'd say, are you psychic? Are you, and I'm like, no, I'm not psychic. And how do you know these things? I don't know. I just know. And, as like I was diving into all of this stuff, then I got this frustration that my talent in that area was in knowing. And I was so jealous of the people that were clairaudient, that heard things, or clairvoyant, that saw things. Like, why am I claircognizant? Like, what proof do I have? At least they have this proof that they hear it or they see it. I just know it. There's like no proof of knowing. And so I love how you just like owned it and love it. And I don't know if you were always in that space, but I remember back, again, this is probably 25 years ago or something, where I was like, oh, I wish I could hear, I wish I could see. And now I do all of those things. But the knowing that's my natural state of receiving information. But it's one of those, I don't know that I want to say that, but it's almost like it's a little bit more challenging to tap into it, because it's just a knowing.
Yeah, I love that, because I think it can feel harder to tap into. Like, so many women tell me how they wish they like want to trust their intuition. And what I learned, like, I feel like I've always been a knower, but really wasn't able or available to trust the knowing until I really like allowed myself to listen to the voice. And so when we have all these thoughts, and self-doubt and all the external that comes in, because we're conditioned to take in from outside of ourselves as the knowing. And so no wonder so many of us, I'll just throw a random percent that probably doesn't have any facts behind it, but like 90% of the population, general population, doesn't really know how to connect with their knowing. And it's because they don't trust themselves to actually listen to it. And, they're used to, and their habits and their patterns and their energy all go toward what should I be doing? What does this person say? What if I did it this way? And so I never thought that I wanted to be a different, superpower. I love that you have all of them, and I think we can all develop all of them as well. I love the knowingness, because for me, that's such a grounding feeling. And when my knowing comes through, it's always from the back of me. And so I know that's my divine message. I know that's what I need to hear. I know that's coming from the truest source.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
Where's your intuition come from, Allyson?
My gut. Which would be, I guess, instinct. Truly. And I didn't really realize that myself until I was in my early 30s, actually. Mm-hmm. And we were going through a lot in our family. We were going through a lot with our daughter's health. I was going through a lot with my own health. My husband and I were going through a lot, struggling in our relationship. And I learned very quickly that there were things that I knew, and I just was trying to avoid them because they weren't necessarily things I wanted to always know about. You know what I mean? Like some were good, some were bad. But for me, like I say that all the time, like I have my friends will come to me and be like, I don't know, I think that this might be going on. I think this is what I'm reading from this situation. And my response always to them is, if you think that that's what's happening, or that's kind of what's going on, that's probably what's going on. Like, you kind of need to go with that instinct and that gut. So yeah,
totally.
I would say that's mine. So, all right. Number two.
Yeah.
Number two is what is, and it could, if you see, we're both of us are total book nerds and we read all the time, and you may or may not be, and that's totally fine. But what is one book that either has influenced you the most, or something current that's influenced you the most?
Yeah, I was looking at that question because I also am a book person. My books are in there, and they're also all over the place. So I have to kind of like
find a lot of most of our guests are total book people. It's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't ever anticipate that I'll read off of an online thing. Like I have just physical books. Like I don't know, we'll see. But and I'm usually reading a couple of books at once. I like fiction at night because it's something that helps me just dive into a story and I can just leave everything go and I can relax and go to bed. I have to read nonfiction or any sort of like self-help or, like personal development or anything like that during the day, because otherwise I'm going to like zonk out. And when I was looking at the books, I'm like, what has really changed me? Because like, generally speaking, anything by Brene Brown, I think is a life-changing, book. But speaking to the work that I do and to energy and rhythm in general, I am loving, and I'm almost finished with, but I brought it because I love it. It's going to be backwards, but When the Drummers Were Women by Lane Redmond. Have you heard of this?
No, I have not.
It's an amazing, amazing book that I discovered. Someone was referencing it on Instagram a while ago, but it's a spiritual history of rhythm. And I have many dog-eared pages, but I love this for many reasons because for those of you who don't know, and you ladies might not know either, like part of my journey has been through cycle awareness. And whether you're menstruating or not, you have a cycle, you have a rhythm. And before we were disconnected from Earth and all the lunar rhythms and the sun, and disconnected in the way of the practice of being in union with the elements of the seasons and whatnot. I was saying something and I lost it. Now I'm like, anyway, this is kind of like where it takes you back. It takes you back to this, like the history of where rhythm came from and how women really were the ones that led the movement and were leaders, and like the womb was revered, and many different lineages and traditions. So Egyptian and Indian and Hindu, and it's just beautiful. And the main character of the book, because this is nonfiction, is the drum, and like the frame drum and how it represented, just this, like the sound was the part of the rhythm, like bringing everybody into union and rhythm. It's really a wonderful, wonderful book, and I think every woman should read it. And I find it highly inspiring and just beautiful. So that's my book.
I love that. And I feel like recently too, we've been getting, I feel like at the beginning of the early days of this podcast, like a lot of the books that people would bring was like, yeah, of course I've read that book. Of course I've read that book. Oh, I love that book. Yes. And I feel like recently, like we're getting a lot of like new books that haven't heard of, haven't read, didn't even know existed. So yeah, this sounds definitely up my alley for sure.
So great. I love it. If you read it, let me know.
I will, for sure. We might put it on. I don't know if you know, Lena, but in our Facebook group, we have a monthly book club.
Ooh,
and so each month we pick a new book. So maybe this one will make it to the list one of these days. I'm going to join the group.
Yeah, please. It's really lovely. There's tons of symbolism in it too. It's just really gorgeous. I love it. Yeah. But I'm big in history when it comes to like I'm not Greek or Italian, but I believe on some level I am. And so I'm really into like European history, just like I'm just a very like the oldness of things, like where things came from is just, I just love it. It's that earthy element of for me. So yeah.
I'm heading back to Egypt for my second trip in November. And part of the reason that I'm going back, I went, that was my 50th birthday present to myself, was a trip to Egypt. And it was kind of crazy. The woman that I went with, she's an Egyptologist, and she takes 2 tours every year, 2 groups to Egypt. And the tour that I signed up for literally no other person signed up for. I was the only person, and she'd message me. She's like, you know, I just want you to let you know you're the only one. And I was like, oh, do you need me to, like, assuming that she would cancel because there was nobody else. And she's like, no, I have to go over anyway, because she has a house there and stuff that she has to take care of. So she's like, I'm going anyway. If you want to go, we'll go. And so I had like my own private tour there. But so much of that trip was, you know, downloaded messages from the goddesses there, from Hathor, from Isis, from Sekhmet. And, you know, I thought it would be a once in a lifetime trip. And now it's like, no, I have to go back. There's unfinished business, and there's more messages to be downloaded from the goddesses over there. And so this book feels like it resonates with all of that as well. So.
Yeah, I think we love it. When are you going back?
November.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I would like to come. I'm inviting myself. Yeah.
I don't know. Supposedly the cutoff for signing up was September 15th. But
I'll be there in spirit. It sounds awesome.
Right.
I'll reach out and find out about it from you because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Question number 3. It is one of the things that we find so important for all women, all the goddesses is, and I'm almost liking, I think we need to start using the term self-love, because I think that's just so much, I like that even better than self-care, but self-love. How do you show yourself self-love? What's your favorite thing to do?
Yeah, I love that question. And I put a little hyphen behind it. It was like, well, how do I define, because it came to me as self-care, but how do I define self-care or self-love? Because to your point, right, like self-care is very much, it's kind of just been exploited. And I think it's taken on a very like superficial level. And I feel like self-love can also take on a superficial level. Yeah. So for me, you know, first I want to share like how I define self-care and self-love. And that is really listening to yourself. You know, it's like honoring all of the parts of yourself. Like, for example, you know, I think we can all relate to feeling something that's uncomfortable. And we all have Allyson, you were sharing it earlier, like, you know, our initial reaction to it, right? Okay, I'm going to ignore this, or I'm going to go like do something else. I'm going to like, you know, feed my face, whatever it is. It's like we have these messages in our body in the way of feelings and emotions and sensations. And so for me, part of self-care is acknowledging what it is that my body, my system, my emotions are telling me. And then from there, I can give myself what I need. So in this like self-care practice or a self-love practice, you know, one of my favorite things to do is to lie on the earth. Or if I can't lie on the earth directly, because I know everybody doesn't have that capacity, you know, like to leave their office, or like maybe they don't even live in a space where they have access to immediate earth. One way that I give myself that if I can't do the lying down is simply just walk outside and take a deep breath. You know, put my feet, just walk on the grass outside if I'm like, just have a break between sessions or something. Lie down in my house and just like wrap my arms around myself. Just a nice grounding embrace is a very common and regular self-love practice in this, a simple one that I take part in on a regular basis.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate you bringing that up, because over the last year or so, with everything that has been happening in our world, you know, it's allowed for a lot of time for reflection, and a lot of learning and reading, and you can see all my books and studying and stuff. And one of the things that I used to love to do as a kid was just go out in the backyard and lay in the grass, right? But we don't do those. We stopped doing all these things that we used to do that were just so simple and part of nature. And like my own kid, I don't even know that my own kids ever really did that. Like 'cause technology came along, and so I started doing that again. When I'll be out walking the dog, and I'm like, I'm just going to lay here in the grass because I think it's going to feel really good. And it really does feel really good.
So good.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I don't do it. It's not for long, maybe a couple minutes. I just lay there and I look up at the blue sky and look at the clouds. And the feeling of being grounded is just so wonderful. And even if I can't take that time to lay down, just to walk barefoot on the ground. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be grass usually. Even just being barefoot outside and on the ground is to me very comforting, and I don't have a better word for it, but that just feels very grounding. I can kind of come back and recenter, and it's great.
The earth is like, for me, my first love. And it's just such a soft hold, right? Like, she's so strong. She has it's like our wombs. It's like our bodies, right? Like the capacity to give and receive and hold and nurture and provide. And it's just an amazing, amazing source of recharge and re-energizing that we have that, Alice, like, we don't do it anymore. It takes a practice of just simply adding a walk out, like even walking out the door. It just it seems so trivial, but it is magnificent. And so if you're hearing this or listening or watching and you're like, oh, just try it, because it will change your life. It really will.
Yeah, and Alice and I, why did I call you Alice? I don't know. It's great that you go and lay in your grass, but like coming from the Midwest, like the grass that we have there is this. The grass down here is horrible.
It is horrible.
I do walk in my backyard in my bare foot. I would never lay down in the grass. Like, it's even like walking on it. I'm like, but I just got back from Wisconsin, and it's like, oh my God, it just like feels so good to walk in that grass and connect with Mother Earth. And
every time I go back to Michigan, that's one of the things I always have to do initially is take my shoes off and walk in the soft grass. And I get what you're saying about our grass. I just have to kind of take that out of my head. But what's really cool is my husband actually just planted, like, some of our grass at the lake was like coming, it was gone. And so he decided, instead of laying sod, he was just going to throw some grass seeds, and it started coming up. And I looked at him and I'm like, how did you get Michigan grass down here? And he's like, what? I'm like, it's the soft grass. And he's like, I don't know. He's like, I bought this like mix of grass seeds and threw it on the ground. And I'm like, ugh. Like, can we make our whole yard like that? It was like, it had the soft Midwest grass. Those of you in the Midwest listening to us, you have no idea how spoiled you are by your grass.
It's true.
All right. Last question.
Last question.
All right. The last question is, and this is something that when we initially started this podcast and our idea was out, we did a lot of research. We spoke to a lot of women that were of our ideal avatar. And one of the things that kept coming back around for a lot of women was struggling with accountability and how do they keep themselves accountable? So that is always our last question to our guests is, how do you find accountability in your life?
I love it. Well, number one, I have an accountability partner. So probably early, maybe even, gosh, I mean, the years are so weird right now. Like early 2019, I don't know, 2020, is that when COVID happened? I'm not sure.
I know.
Early a year-ish ago, my friend Bex and I, who met through a network that we like both did coaching, like originally like 5 years ago or something. We now meet every week on Zoom on Thursdays, and we just have a nice 45-minute check-in. And then we're friends now. Like, we built this, like, it started as accountability, and now it's more. And so we have time where we share our things, and then what we want to hold ourselves accountable for, hold each other accountable to in our work. And then throughout the week, we connect on Voxer. So I love having a human that helps hold me accountable and helps me kind of work through some things. It doesn't always help me do the things that I say that I was going to do because, there's always things in our own self that get in the way. But that's been really helpful. And I don't really like lists anymore. I kind of graduated out of lists and start using my cycle and the rhythm of my energy with how I work my life. But I still have things that I have, things that are designated at certain times and whatnot. So when I write something down, that does help me stay accountable to do it. It's just, actually doing it and not moving it to like the next week or something. That's where I'm, it's like that's that little tricky part. Yeah, because that used to happen to me a lot, and I speak to it a lot in the work that I do, because it's like how most women, and I speak maybe most people, but women in my experience, like they operate from this to-do list instead of operating from their energy level, and then the to-do list just never ends because they're out of rhythmic energy, and they're like just like trying to work all these things in when their energy isn't aligning with what they need to do, and they could really do it differently. So that's part of what I teach with my women.
I think I need a lesson in that. That's very cool.
It is super cool, and it's really helpful when you get it.
Yeah, because my to-do list, they just keep they get crossed off, but they keep moving too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's kind of the trap of the to-do list. Yeah, I've been there. Yeah. Yeah.
And Julietta and I are huge believers in accountability partners, being as she's one of mine. Yeah, I know.
Which way is which way?
Yeah.
Yes, we've definitely, this podcast exists because we hold each other accountable. So,
awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, if it weren't for the help of others.
So true.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to do our takeaways, and I will start with Julietta. What is your takeaway from today?
So my takeaway was talking about self-care, self-love, yes, okay. We'll change the question from self-care to self-love. But in addition to that, I loved what she was saying about listening to ourselves, because sometimes, the things that I like to do, meditation, journaling, laying on my table, sometimes I find myself doing them because I should do them, as opposed, like if I truly sat and listened to myself, it's not always what serves me best and what feels most caring and loving to myself at the moment. And so, and like, even when I don't do them, I end up beating myself up for not doing them. And how stupid is that? Because, here I am using, lack of self-care to be make the fact that I didn't do something for self-care even worse by beating myself up for not doing it. But, so definitely getting into that, tuning into self and listening to like, what is the best thing for my self-care at this moment? It may or may not be what I think it should be. My takeaway.
I love that.
How about you, Allyson?
I would say, I think my biggest takeaway is that I need to figure out how to get away from a to-do list and work with my energy better, because it's interesting you brought that up about self-love and listening to yourself. I do that a lot. I'm getting better at, if I'm like, we've kind of, the running theme today has been feeling your feels and being okay with them wherever you're at and what they are at that moment. And I am getting better about not being so hard on myself. Like if I'm having that moment of, because I've struggled on and off over the years with depression and anxiety. And if I'm having that moment of having that feeling, like allowing myself to be in that moment and not beat myself up because I didn't get the to-do list done or all of the to-do list done, right? But learning how to work with my energy, I can see how I could be so much more efficient with that to-do list and not being a to-do list, but, working, my only concern would be is sometimes I forget stuff if they're not written down. So that would be my challenge, I think, in that, but that's my takeaway. I'm gonna have to figure, I gotta learn some more about that from Lena.
Yeah, please do.
I will. All right.
Thank you.
What is your takeaway?
Gosh, ladies, it feels like, what is my take? I'm like, oh, I love both of your takeaways. I think my biggest takeaway is listening to you all share, number one, what your takeaways are, but also just share your experiences. And Allyson, just like talking about where you feel all of us talking about where we hear and feel our intuition, right? Because I think that's really of service to those listening. To pay attention to where they feel feelings. I have a lot of clients that I work with that really have a lot of gut stuff, like a lot. And they feel like their anxiety there, they feel their discomfort there, but then they can also feel their comfort there. And so just for me, hearing you share that, Allyson, and hearing you, Julietta, talk about your multiple knowingness, and how you relate to that, was the takeaway from me today.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how much their gut, I mean, they're calling it the second brain now, right? Like
Yeah.
they're scientists. I mean, the science part of all of us, because we all have that little bit in us too. And that science part is really amazing what they're finding, how it's kind of all connected, gut, heart, brain, like they need each other and they work together. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. So
it's amazing. The body is an amazing system that we take for granted, I think, in a lot of ways.
I would say so a little bit. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Lena, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we are excited to have all the information in the show notes. So when this podcast launches, everything that we've talked about will be in the show notes. If you want to connect with Lena or Julietta or myself, that will also be there. And her video will go live inside of our group when the podcast launches. We're excited for that too. And thank you so much for reaching out to us. This has been awesome. This is one of the pluses of going through what we've been going through for the last year and a half, right? You get to Zoom and meet people from all over. Our interview before you, she was in Spain.
I mean, that's so great.
Yeah, right? It's awesome. We would have never even done it. We wouldn't even thought to do it if we weren't in this situation. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure and such a joy to be here. I really appreciate it.
Julietta, I know I forgot something, so do you want to wrap us up?
You gotta tell everybody, if you liked what you heard today, please subscribe. YouTube, podcast, we're everywhere. Like us, follow us, subscribe, and share us with your friends. And also, if you're interested in being a guest on this show, you can reach out on our website and let us know. It would be our pleasure to have you here. I wish you all a magical day.
Thanks. Bye, Lena.
Bye.
Bye, Lena.
Bye. Thank you.